Hey everybody, it's Bryce here from codelife.io. Today we're going to be expanding upon the To-Do app we built. So we built a To-Do app with React, just bare bones React, no Redux. And now we're going to go ahead and build that same application in Angular so you can kind of see the differences between React and Angular. I think though it's not a truly fair comparison though, because the way React is, it's this is a to-do app, so a pretty simple app. So React, you don't need Redux necessarily to manage your state throughout your app. So it's pretty easy. And I think in Angular, it's going to look a little more complicated, a lot more, maybe not a lot more code, but more moving pieces than you're probably used to with React. So it's going to be a little overwhelming at first and look way more difficult or challenging than React possibly. I don't think so. I think it's more organized and clean. But I think if you were to compare Angular to Redux or React with Redux, then that would be a pretty fair comparison. And so I may actually end up doing an app where I do this same to-do app with Redux, so you can actually see kind of the added complexities when you start managing larger scale apps, because Angular is pretty robust and it's going to allow you to build large scale applications. Whereas React by itself, it's going to be a little challenging as your app starts to get bigger. And that's why they have stuff like Flux, Alt, Redux. So Redux will manage your state for you for the larger applications. But you'll see once you start adding more moving pieces, it becomes more complicated, so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. So you can see on my screen here, I have the very same app where we can learn some JavaScript. We can add that to-do. We're going to remove to-dos. If we refresh, we're just loading back those 3 initial to-dos that we're hard coding into our application. So pretty straightforward, same exact application. I try to make it look about the same and everything. So you'll see, I'll copy over some styles and whatnot as I'm going through this, just to make things easier. But let's go ahead and get started here. So if we go over to the Angular CLI website, expand this out here, Angular or CLI.angular.io, and you can go ahead and you can see they have the quick instructions here how to get started. Very, very similar to the Create React app. Create React app. So we can go ahead and run that. So we go npm install -g for global at Angular/CLI, which I've done this already, so it should go fairly quickly. But if you haven't, it could take a minute, so be prepared. Come on, puppy. Let's get going. While that's cooking, we'll look at the next command. ng, so ng is the, what's the word I'm looking for? Denotes what you're calling. Can't think of the word. Kind of like the Create React app was the namespace for the Create React app command line tools. So ng is the command line tool for Angular CLI, which Angular CLI is not Angular, it's just a command line tool to allow you to generate new applications, components, scaffolds and stuff. It's pretty awesome, especially for you guys that are Ruby on Rails fans who like using the command line generators. Very similar, very cool stuff, so you can rapidly kind of prototype some stuff out. All right, so we're all done. So let's go ahead and create our new app here. ng new, we'll call it To-Dos app. And that'll go ahead and create a directory. You see it creating all the files for us, all the basic scaffolding of a new app. So it's actually building it with Webpack, just like the Create React app was. So it shouldn't be too bad. I'll go ahead and pause the video here until it's done installing, because it can take a second to run. All right, so it's all done. So if we go ls, so I created this app already, so I could show you guys. So when I made it originally, as To-Do app. So we'll go into To-Dos app, the one we just created, cd into To-Dos app, which it tells you that right here, cd into your app. And then you can run ng serve. So we kill my other one I have over here. and you serve. And you'll see, go ahead, it's compiling, transpiling, whatever, with the Webpack, because Angular CLI is going to add TypeScript by default to your Angular app, which TypeScript is awesome, by the way, if you haven't used it before. So compiled successfully. Perfect. So let's split this horizontally here. We'll cd into that same directory. All right, so we're cd'd into that directory. Now let's go ahead and let's look at what our app generated. So boom, big old ugly site. So not as cool as the create React app scaffolding, but it's got some helpful links there, get you started, which the documentation is fantastic for Angular. So let's go ahead and open it up here. So I'm going to launch Atom. That over here. Perfect. So you'll see you have all your end-to-end testing here. For source, you have a couple of directories. You have some assets you can throw in there, some additional like images or whatever you need. Environments, you can set different environments. Your default, is production false, production true if you were to build it, compile it with a particular environment flag. But that's something to get into later. So for us, we're going to work in this app directory here for the most part. So app module, this is where you kind of load all your different components, your modules, and then they actually are going to bootstrap the application here. Actually, main TS is where you bootstrap, but you specify all the configuration here in app module with TS. So anytime you create new components, a lot of times if you use the command line generator, it'll automatically generate and add them in here. There's a couple odd situations where it doesn't. I think on services, it doesn't automatically include them, so you have to manually add them in here. But not a big deal. So we go to app component. So it's rendering title, so we'll see the HTML for it. So that's everything that's spit out on page, which we don't want that. We just want to render, say, H1 Angular to-dos. And we'll save. We'll see an update on the left. Awesome. That looks ugly. That's okay. We have some global styles here, which we can add some stuff to. Let's see, we want to do, let's do that. Change the font to the sans serif font. That's a little nicer. Close that out. So okay, that change, and here, I'm not actually going to load anything up here. We don't need titles. So that would be how you specify different variables that you can put in your app. And then you have your own CSS file per component, which is nice. So you saw us doing that with the React application. So kind of similar, except you don't have to, I guess explicitly, you include it here. So it actually has like a set structure. You'll see these decorators like this. But you specify different properties, and you can render the templates that way. So a little more kind of structure and organization than React, but there's a lot of stuff going on already, as we can see, a lot of files, which can be overwhelming. But don't worry, you'll learn in due time what they all mean. So let's get cooking here. So the next thing we probably want to do, let's see, is actually, let's go back in the app component here. And I think actually we want to do, we'll put that into a header file of its own, because that's kind of how we do it before. So we'll div, create class, app, and do to-do wrapper like we did before. And then we'll create a component here called app header, which we haven't specified yet, but we will. And you'll notice a big difference here. Well, I say big. But in React, you just self-close the tags here. In Angular, you actually have an opening and closing tag. It's not a big deal, so that should explode. Yep, because we don't have app header. Where is that? Well, we haven't created it yet. So let's go ahead and create that. So we can go ng, g for generate, or you can write it out. Generate. Component, and which you specify like what you want. Generate a component, service, class, interface, pipe, all kinds of stuff. So we do a component, ng generate component, and we want to do it in the components folder or directory, which we don't have yet, but that's okay. It'll generate for us. So we just say components and then slash the name, what do we want to be. So we'll say header. So I'll go ahead and generate. You see it updated the module TS. So get in there. Boom, header component got added to declarations. So we're good to go there. We don't do that anymore. And boom, header works. So it's running that component. So if you look, we have a new directory, components, header. And if we open that up, it just says header works. But now we can say h1 Angular to-dos. And we just created our first component, which we're loading into our app component, HTML, right there. Easy enough. We didn't have to do anything. That was awesome. All right. So prototyping is pretty easy. Not a lot of work there. So we have some styles. So I'm going to try to copy over the styles we had from last time here. App component. So app.css, app component.css. Save that. That'll center it up for us. Boom. Our basic structure. We're looking good. Looking good. All right. All right. So now what we want to do is what next? What next? So we have app component HTML. So we have an app header. We really need to add a the to-do input. That's right. So let's go ng component. Let's get up, I guess. And we'll do to-do input. Same thing, it's going to generate a bunch of stuff, update the app module to include it, so make sure it gets included when it gets wrapped up. And now we do to-do input. Boom, to-do input works. You're probably wondering, where do these names come from, app to-do input? You can change that. They're in the components. So we have our to-do, in the TS file, the TypeScript file, you'll see the selector. So we could change this to just to-do input. By default, it just slaps an app on the front, app text. But you could just remove that, and then you would just include to-do input like that, or whatever you want to make it. It's pretty versatile. So we have that. We're not doing a whole lot with it just yet. So what we want to do is go to the HTML for it, and we're going to delete that. I'll do so to-do input wrapper, and we'll have input type text, and here we're going to do some two-way data binding. So whatever gets typed in here will get linked to to-do text. Which we can probably make this one way. I'll just make it two-way for now. Because like banana tags or something like that. But if you did just square brackets, it goes binding from the HTML to the TypeScript file, and doing the other way. Excuse me. No. Square brackets is coming from TypeScript file into the HTML file. It's binding one way that way. The parentheses will bind it from the HTML to the TypeScript one way. And then if you do both, it's two-way bound. So if there's a change made to our variable here, which will be to-do text will be the variable name we'll have. We'll say the value, we'll render it as to-do text. Close that tag. That should be good, but it's going to throw an error. We don't have a to-do text, right? So that makes sense. Copy over some styles from this to-do input real quick. That we're going to have. Some pre-built styles I have. So we have the HTML. I need to add TypeScript, that's where we were. Perfect. So we have the TypeScript. So we are going to create in the constructor here. So inside your class, so you're going to have, if you're familiar with object-oriented programming, you have different variables and stuff like that you can have on an object or class. So we can have private and public variables. You can have protected as well. So if you do private to do text, this is TypeScript here where you tell it the type. So the type will be string, which is nice. So you get, it'll throw errors if the type doesn't match, which is pretty cool. So in our constructor, we can say this dot to do text, initialize it to that. Perfect. And this ng on init is a lifecycle hook that gets triggered when it initializes. There's a bunch of other ones like ng on change and stuff like that, different triggers. So we're still getting an error. Can't bind to do text since it isn't a known property of input. That's odd. Ooh, I know. So what we need to do is go into our module here. So you have different modules that get imported. So we need to import another one, which will be Angular Forms module. So you need to import that, and then in the imports, this is where all your modules get imported. We go Forms module, and I think that'll fix that for us. Nope. Can't bind to do text isn't a known property of input. That's odd. This needs to be public. What did I do here? 1 second. Pause the video while I do. Alright, I found my typo. So if we go into to do input component, so you don't do that, you do ng model. Not to do text. It's getting carried away here. Some other stuff going on. Code this an element to do text is not a valid attribute. Man, typos everywhere. Alright, now we're good. Perfect. So we're just running the input, but we need a button next to it, right? So if we go button, so that was a doozy. Those typos get away from you. So we'll go class equals btn primary, just like we did before. And now what we'll do is, remember in create React app or React, you go on a click, which is kind of the native JavaScript way to do things, equals, and then call your function. This way, we're going to call click. So saying on click, do this, which we're going to call an add to do function. And then the button will say submit. I'll throw an error, maybe. Not yet. We click it. Then it explodes because we don't have that function, right? So we need to add it back in our component. Back in, let's see. So we go private, because we only need to call it from this component here, right? Nobody else needs to be calling this. Add to do. This private won't add it. Add to do returns void Well, it doesn't return anything. That's why it's void return. And then we can say this dot to do, let's say, just console log it. And to do this dot to do text. And then we want to clear it out after we type in there, so we can then just set this dot to do text to an empty string. That'll clear it back out. Perfect. So then if we type, boom, see it popping up right there, and it clears the text. Easy enough. What we really need is a service to kind of help with this, right? So let's go ahead and generate a service to help us manage. So service is going to manage the state. It's where you want to go fetch all your HTTP calls if you're calling to an API or something like that. But also, it's going to follow kind of a singleton pattern where you're going to have one single instance where you're going to share that state. So you can have multiple services, like so maybe if you have one for to-dos, for users, for something else, whatever, and that'll manage the entire state for that particular item. So pretty common practice here. So let's go generate a service. So I probably did this already. Yep. Services, and we'll call it to do. So you see this, like I was saying before, warning, services generated but not provided. It must be provided to be used. So I think we'll have to go into add module here, and when it says that, for experience doing this, providers is where you're going to need to add it. So for whatever reason, they don't automatically import these. So let's go import to do service from services / to do dot service, because it was in the services folder, to do service, and then here's where we'll actually include it, to do service. Now it's provided. Now we can actually start using the service between our components. So if we open up the to do service, you'll see the spec file. That's where you're testing, which comes with each component you generate, or service, or whatever. It's awesome. So what we want to do now is work on the service. So we have our constructor. We want an array here of to-dos. So we'll do private, because we don't want people to access this directly. We want them to come through. We're going to encapsulate it, computer science term. So you don't want people directly modifying your array of to-dos here. So to-dos is of type to-do array. So we'll have a function where somebody will call a public function, which will then update our private variable here. So we're going to warning, can't find to-do, obviously. So we need to generate a class. So ng generate class, classes / to-do. So open the classes folder of to-do item. Let's see. So this to-do class, right? So in the to-do class, it's going to have two things here. So to-do, I'm going to give it an ID of type number. Let me do private here. I'm just going to leave it for now. I think you can specify private and public. Text, a string, and let's have a constructor function. So when we create this, we'll have an ID, which is a number you need to pass in. And then you also need to pass in text variable, which is of type string. Pretty straightforward. So we'll say this.id equals ID, this.text equals text. So you can set private getters and setters and stuff for this if you want to, but we're not going to do that for time's sake here. So now we have a class to do. So now in our service, we can come in here and we can import that. Import to do from classes slash to-do. From. Boom. So now we have this type, which is awesome, right? You can use TypeScript in React. You just got to add it to your build process in Webpack. But with Angular CLI, it just comes out of the box for your Angular project. You don't have to use TypeScript, but that's just what the default if you use the CLI. I think you can specify a flag not to, but I would highly recommend it. It'll make it more legible. You can tell exactly, okay, this should be of this type to do, which then that class can have an interface, so you can specify that all classes that say they're of a certain type or certain interface, like implement certain functions. So it's pretty cool. So now we have all these to-dos. Just like before, we need to keep track of the next ID of the to-do. So let's just add that now. So that's the type number. And then in our constructor here, we'll say this.todos, so our array that we had before. When we construct this service, we're going to just have our default ones. But instead of just listing them as just raw objects like we were before, we'll actually instantiate a new instance of the to-do object. So we're just going to new to-do, and we can pass it at 0, make dinner tonight, new to-do 1, say fold the laundry, period. And our last one, new to-do 2, learn to make an Angular app. Perfect. So we have that. And then we also want to set up this.nextID equals 3, because that'll be the next one in the list. Perfect. Now, you remember how I said we weren't going to directly modify to-dos because it's private. So we're going to create a public function called add to-do, which will take text of string, and it's going to be a void return type, so no return. We'll say let to-do equal new to-do. So we're going to actually instantiate a new instance of a to-do. This dot next ID for the ID, and we'll say text that's getting passed in. And then we can say this dot to-dos dot push our to-do, and then we can say this dot next ID. I'm just go ahead and increment that. So pretty easy. But what if we want to get our to-dos? We probably need another function, right? So public get to-dos, which will return a to-do array. See how that happens? Bam. So return this.todos, which is a type to-do array. So now you can actually hit these public functions, which will then grab you the information or add it to do whatever you need it to do, right? While we're in here, let's just do the remove. We know we're going to need it. Public remove to do, which we need the ID of the one we want to remove, which is a type number, void return type, because we're not going to need anything back. We just want to pop it off the list. So we'll say this dot to-dos equals this dot to-dos dot filter. Use that fancy filter function. To-do.id does not equal ID. Like that. Cool. All right. So we have all this. So now we actually want to wire up this add to do to our to do input here. So we're not doing anything at the moment. So I actually want to push this on the stack here. So we need to import our service. So import, how many layers up is that? There we go. So it was to do service from 2 layers up. Services / to-do.service. And then we can inject it here. So we'll say private to-do service. But you can name this whatever you want. Is of type to-do service. So that's linked. So now you can access it via this, because this is coming in here. That is of that type there. So now we can actually access that down here. And we'll say this dot to do service. And then we can call that function in there, add to do. Say this dot to do to do text. That's what I'll do. Now that should be wired up. If we are to do service, let's just put a console logger here. Say this dot to do's. So if we add some random to do, so you see it doesn't say object, object. It says to do, because they're not just plain objects. We know what type of object they are. We instantiate them as new to-dos and specify that class. So, and to do has two properties, ID and text. You know, there they are. And there's the third one we added. Perfect. So we can get rid of that logger. We know that's working. Perfect. So we actually want to render them now on the page. So we need to go back to, let's see, our app component .html, and let's add in here. Let's make it a div. And in that div, we want to do ng4 equals, I'll say let to do of, I'll specify, let's just call it from the to do service, which we'll pass into this function here, get to do's. So for each, basically say for each to do in the to do's, so we wired up this get to do's service here, we want to do something, and we probably want to add a app to do item. So we need to generate here to do item. And we want to pass into that the to do. Like that. There we go. Which explodes because we haven't wired all this stuff up. So if we go into our app component.ts and need to import our service. To do service. Services / to do.service. And that's all in there. We just need to add a constructor function here. Constructor private to do service is of type to do service. So that should take care of that. So now to do service is now accessible in our HTML view. That should work. So now we need to generate the to do item. So ngg component to do item. So we do that. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly dump the to do item CSS on there. But you can all see this on the GitHub I've created for this project. Where did it go? To do item under components. To do item. Just paste that in. Save some time. And then we'll actually want to open up that file, TypeScript file. Let's do To do item, there it is. Perfect. So you probably saw in app component we were passing in to do. So when you specify that, it's coming in as an input. So it's kind of like props in React, where you can pass them, and you can do that same thing. So because it's just a dumb component, just rendering straight on the page. It's not really doing much. It just needs to take it as an input to render. So let's go ahead and add that as an input. So to do item component, which imports from the Angular core. And then we probably also need to import let's see, to do from, is that two directories up? Yeah. Classes / to do, and we'll need our service, so we need publish with the remove. It's not quite a dumb component per se, but stuff getting passed into it. Like it can instantiate itself without somebody telling it what its to do is. So services / to do service. Perfect. And our constructor, let's bring that service in. So same thing we've done before, private to do service. So type to do service. Now what we want to do is here, so you use this decorator input. I'm going to say private to do is a type to do. And so now this variable gets populated on instantiation of this component because it's coming in as an input. And so we'll know exactly what that is when this gets created. So pretty awesome, kind of magic. So we can go private, remove to do because we're the only ones that need to access it. Nobody else is going to be calling this. Void is a return type, and we just want to say this dot to do service dot remove to do. So this dot to do dot ID. Boom. Which you see it's like rendering. For each one, it just renders the plain text because we haven't done anything in the HTML. We just have the generic one that was created for us. So let's do dot to wrapper, and we'll make a button here. The button will have a class of remove to do, and on a click, we want to call our remove to do, which that's going to be scoped only to within our component here. We don't have to say this or anything like that. It'll know, but if you want to call something that was in the service like a function, you could from here. Technically, I guess we could just bypass ours, but I'd rather go through the proper kind of chaining. Proper chaining as we go through it. Well, it's not proper, but just so you can see kind of how you can make things kind of flow through your app and make more sense as it goes through. So to do text, render the text there. So that was a big thing. React, it just uses single curly braces. Angular uses double, in case you haven't noticed. And I think there we go. And will it remove? Yeah. Can add new ones. Perfect. I'll make this a little bigger here. Pretty sweet. I think that's all we had to that. Just double check here. That's all. I think that was everything. It looks pretty good to me. Move them. For refresh, we get our default ones that are loading. When we initialize the to-do service, right here. So those new to-dos. Pretty cool. So as you complete items on your to-do list, just check them off. Make new ones. Learn Redux. Oh, that'll be our next thing. That's it. If you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, please go ahead and leave a comment below. Also, please subscribe and please share with others. I know there's lots of other people out there that are wanting to learn Angular or React or other stuff I may come up in the future, so please subscribe and share. That way they know, and please like the video as well if you enjoyed it. That way other people can find it. But perfect. Well, maybe we'll do another tutorial, but we'll do it with Redux or something like that, so you can see that we're really comparing apples to apples here, because React is pretty lightweight on its own. So if you have a really small instance you need, a really small application, perfect. Or you're only going to do React in a small portion of your application, that's great. But once you start getting these more complicated states and stuff like that, it's going to be tough to do with just bare bones React. You're going to really want something to help manage your global state. So that's when Redux comes into play. And so that would be more apples to apples comparison with Angular. So if you added Redux as well as React Router onto React, then I think we'd be pretty apples to apples there. And then you can really get a good idea which one works best for you. Everybody's got their preference. So that's all for now. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.